Maybe you're like me and sourdough is one of those things that you are really interested in trying, but you just don't even know where to start. How does flour and water turn into this crazy living microorganism? So let's get into the what is sourdough. Flour is not just flour, which we assume we think of flour. Flour is flour. Flour is actually a complex carb, so a carbohydrate. Unlike simple carbs like glucose, sucrose, fructose, the content of the starch, which is broken down, it's converted to simple sugar. Use rye flour, that's gonna be more tangy. But you can choose a different flour, and then all it is water. It's essentially what the microbes can feed on. So how the heck does water and flour mixed into a sludge turn into this living organism? Microorganisms of yeast and lactic acid bacteria, they break down the sugars within the flour to produce our carbon dioxide and our lactic acid, which is not lactic acid bacteria, it's lactic acid. So there's these naturally occurring enzymes called amylases, but there's also synthetic enzymes. So the natural enzymes get activated when we mix the flour and water. If it's constantly exposed to oxygen, it won't rise. And this is also related to the kneading process, because when you're kneading dough, it's important to knead it for how long it's saying to knead it for, because breads will need longer kneading or more kneading. Other breads, you might be only doing a couple folds. That's what's going to help build the glutinous structure within it with the protein. So there's something called an anaerobic process, which is when we are doing something in the absence of oxygen. So like very intense exercises, our oxygen levels are at a lower point. And it's the same essence with bread. The fermentation process for our sourdough is at a very low oxygen point. You might hear of like burping your sourdough and stuff, but you don't constantly expose it to oxygen. I mentioned slow and fast fermentation. So longer fermentation processes lead to a better flavor. They lead to, they're fresh for longer. It breaks down more of that starch, making it easier for you to digest. You're feeding your starter to encourage those enzymatic activities to happen. And that's what's encouraging like those starches to be broken down. Lactic acid bacteria can also be naturally found in like decomposing plant matter. It can be found in the skins of fruits and vegetables, and it could be found in dairy products. So it's probiotic. Probiotics, lactic acid is essentially like a probiotic. The lactic acid bacteria comes from flour, water, the environment. It can come from the air, it can come from utensils, and it could even be on the baker's hands. If you're in a pinch or you're just trying to start sourdough, maybe you prefer a milder sourdough taste, you can do a fast fermentation process. This is with a warmer environment and with warm feedings. You want to consider your current environment you're in. Manipulate the fermentation process by placing your sourdough in the fridge. And then when you want to use it, you take it out. You get it active by feeding it with some maybe warmer water. Are you a busy mom where you don't have a lot of time to be feeding your starter? Maybe you want to put it in the fridge for a few days. Who can sourdough be really good for? So if you're somebody with diabetes or you struggle with your blood glucose content, I would say sourdough would be something to look into and research and consider. Not a medical professional, but sourdough does have a lower glycemic index, which slows down the absorption of sugar. It contains resistant starch, which causes a slower rise in sugar. So it's better blood glucose control. It's also really, really high in fiber, which can be good for many people, but that can improve the glycemic response. Overall, it can help maintain your gut microbiome, which is so, so important, and it's due to it being a prebiotic, because as it is fermenting, it's essentially like a probiotic from that lactic acid bacteria, but then as it's baking, it turns into a prebiotic. The longer fermentation process essentially makes it easier for you to digest it. And as I said before, there's less gluten in sourdough, so if you have gluten sensitivities, not allergies, like Crohn's disease, then you could try it. But if you have something like Crohn's disease where you're very, very sensitive to gluten, I would probably advise to stay away from it, or at least consult somebody that is really, really familiar with your specific situation and sourdough in general probably. It's a risk that you would have to decipher between yourself. Adding fermented food to your diet can help improve that gut microbiome and heal it and just bring back those prebiotics and those bacteria that you're maybe missing. Like, I think this is enough of an explanation for baking bread. Probably too much. I'm sure there's that one person that thinks I'm talking too much, but I do think it's important. Like, we need to understand what we're putting into our bodies, why we're putting them into our bodies, and what is our body even doing with what we're putting in it. And then let's get into how the heck do you make sourdough? Zero? Tear? Hello? You're joking. I found this in my cupboard. This is brown rice flour. I don't think I'll like it, but I want to use it and I figured it would be good. I don't really want to waste like a bunch of flour and my starter not work out while I'm learning like my environment and stuff. So we're gonna try this to start with, and I'm not using a scale because my scale's dead and I don't have batteries. I have a 1/4 of a cup as accurately measured as I'm probably gonna get it, and I'm gonna put that in here. And then I'm just gonna measure out my water, which I'm gonna get kind of like a lukewarm, not super hot. All right, there's our starter. Welcome back. It is day 2. And our friend here, who we have not named yet, is not looking very active. He's not looking very different. We are literally just going to add the same amount of flour and water as we did yesterday. We're just feeding it, and I'm gonna do warm water. I'm just trying to make it active, and we will see. I think day 5 to 7 is when we start to really see the activation and the microorganisms growing and stuff, eating, feeding, whatever. So I'm hopeful. I'm doing my absolute bestest to measure this, but we're doing our best here. Okay, so this is what it is looking like right now. Our sourdough is still not looking very active. We are going to power through and hope for the best. Hopefully I'm doing this accurately. I'm really trying to keep it warm. Like, I'm keeping this oven light on so that it's generating a little bit of heat and warmth on the sourdough. 100 grams of each today. I'm measuring in cups, which is a really bad idea, but I am going to be measuring in ounces to make it a little bit more accurate, hopefully, for the water. And again, feeding it with a warmer water since I'm in a cooler environment. And then just for a visual, this is what mine is looking like right now. So it's kind of just like a dried, crusty something. I realized we didn't discard, so I'm just gonna discard. Shit. Oh no. Okay, so I didn't like fully mix it up. Oh no, guys. Okay, yeah, so did I just mess this all up? I will come back tomorrow and we will add 150 grams of the flour and the water and see if she's doing okay. We're gonna name him Ricky. Okay, it is day 4 of our sourdough, and today is the day it's starting to show personality. Ricky is showing a very stinky personality. I'm telling you guys, this dude smells like sour ass. Oh my god, that's so bad. I can't handle that, guys. That's so bad. That stinks so freaking bad. And we are going to discard half of this first. Richard has been cut in half. I think this is good news because he's bubbling. So this is what mine is looking like. It's a little bit gelatinous. Mr. Ricky is not as disgusting today. He doesn't smell as bad. There is a sour smell, but it's not as putrid as yesterday. So I think that's a good sign. Normally when there's a sour smell, it means that it either needs to be fed or it's part of the fermentation process. Oh. Rye is another flour choice that doesn't contain as much gluten in it. So what I'm thinking is, since I'm running really low on this flour, and this is already almost supposed to be ready for my starter. What I'm thinking is I'm gonna go purchase some rye flour for my backup, and I will continue to feed this with some of this flour, and I'll slowly introduce the rye flour into it. And I'm hoping that since rye is still a lower content of the gluten, it will encourage it to still ferment, a slow fermenting, but it will contain, rye is so good because it has all of that amylase stuff in it, it has all of these different nutrients in it, and so I think it will be a good option for me. Day 7, Ricky is leaving. Also, I want to talk about my flour dilemma, and why do I now have 3 different kinds of flour? As I said before, when you have a non-gluten like flour, like brown rice flour, I believe is what we were using, that's going to take longer to ferment. It's going to take longer to see activity, and for me, just starting out, that's hard for me to gauge. I decided to introduce regular flour to it, but like I said, I don't want to use this flour. I'm preferring to use, I wanted to use rye, which I was going to introduce, but I didn't have it on hand. So I had to use this, and I'm slowly introducing it. Now I'm fully feeding it with this, by the way. It wasn't even really a slow introduction. I just did like half, and then I fully introduced this, which you might want to do a little bit slower of a feed, but I think this just really encouraged it because it was that strong gluten structure. Now, if you were going from like a flour like this to a gluten-free flour, that might not have worked out as well. In my description, if you're interested in looking into starting sourdough or trying it, I really encourage you to read both of the links I'm going to put below. We're going to be turning Ricky into some cheddar biscuits today. We're going to feed Ricky first and take his discard and use that for these cheddar biscuits. I prepped my oven. I set it, preheat it to 400. Line your baking sheet so that you have everything ready. I have my bowl set aside so that I can put the measured amount of discard into here, and then the rest of it I might put into that, I'll probably put into the jar. Here's a close-up of Ricky, the half cup of him, also taking a note to where he was. So, ooh, oh, I'm flinging him everywhere. All right, I transferred Ricky to his old bowl just because it's easier. So for this recipe, you're gonna put into a big bowl 2 cups of flour. You're gonna put in 1 teaspoon of baking soda, 1 teaspoon of baking powder. I did a teaspoon of garlic powder, a teaspoon of salt, and then I also opted for a little bit of nutritional yeast flakes in there. You're gonna add your sourdough to that, and we're gonna be doing half a cup of yogurt. I'm using probiotic organic yogurt, but you can use Greek or whatever your specific choice is. And then you're gonna pour in your 3/4 cup of milk. Now we're gonna fold in our cheese, and I'm doing it by hand because I feel like that's just gonna get it all mixed in there good. And something that my friend taught me, that's been kind of showing me a little bit about sourdough, is that using wet hands, because it's so sticky, sourdough is commonly a little bit thicker and stickier. Use wet hands when you're doing folds or anything like that, and it will just help it to not stick. If it seems really sticky and you can't do it like I'm doing this, then maybe add a little bit more flour to it. But mine is actually pretty good. Give her a good slap. Because he's so sticky, this is what I've been doing. I'm just scooping. This is the last scoop. But I'm scooping with my ice cream scoop, and I use the back of my spoon to kind of push it outwards. And then I can also like alternate, kind of get a nice like round point. They're not gonna look perfect, but they'll bake up to be really nice biscuits. We have made biscuits. A starter is considered young until it's been like mature for like 6 months. So I still have a really young starter. We will come back and just see where I'm at with everything. I'm super excited to try these biscuits though, and I'm gonna share a picture with my mom. That is my experience with sourdough so far. I'm obviously gonna be continuing doing that. If you would like to see what all I am making with Ricky, you can check out my Facebook, or you can check out my other short videos on my other socials or the shorts on here. I'm gonna be posting recipes and things that I've tried because I've already tried and I've made like 4 different things with him, which are behind me. And definitely turn on the notification bell so you don't miss when I upload. And I will catch you guys in the next video. Do not forget that you are loved, and peace.